Disclaimer. I am not a lawyer, I am not a prosecutor, I am not a judge. I'm just a guy who happens to have a laptop and very strong Wi-Fi at home, who did hours of research to make this video as accurate as possible for you guys. Believe it or not, I actually tried to interview a lawyer for this video, but what can I say? Lawyers are busy people. What's up, Scouters? So as I promised in my previous video, let's talk about the Korean law today. So with a lot of K-pop celebrities being charged with very heavy crimes or being sentenced to actual prison time, a lot of international K-pop fans have been focusing on to the Korean justice system throughout 2019. And naturally, a lot of people have sent me emails or DMs asking me about the Korean justice system, specifically on why the Korean justice system seems so much weaker than theirs. Well, that was mostly from my viewers in the United States, but still, a lot of people were asking me why the Korean justice system seems so much weaker. So to understand the main difference between the Korean justice system and some of yours, we have to sort out some of the differences between the common and the civil law systems. And obviously, the moment I mention the words common and civil law, some of you are like, yep, goodbye, this is not the video for me, James. But bear with me because we're gonna rush through this without you guys missing any important information. So the common law is used by America. It's based on the laws of England. It's no surprise that they are using this type of justice system. On the contrary is the civil law, which is used by a lot of countries on mainland Europe. And although Korea had a law since its old kingdom periods, those were traditional laws that are completely different from the system we have now. But during the Japanese colonial period, Korea started taking in continental law systems from Japan, who already adopted a continental law system from Germany after it started modernizing. Then after liberation, this new justice system stayed in place. The main difference between the civil and common law systems is that common law systems rely on precedents. And obviously in this type of system, judges are given more power. Also, common law systems focus on actually giving punishments to those who deserve to be punished. On the contrary, the focus of the civil law systems is on rehabilitation of these criminals and making judgments on statutes, which is basically using the law as it is written. Let me give you an example. Using recreational marijuana in Korea can be punished with up to 5 years of prison time or $50,000 of fine. So no matter the case, the judges will usually give you a sentence within this period of time and within this amount of fine because that is how the law is written. Look at this man. This is a rapper that I absolutely love named E-Sense. He was caught once using marijuana and was sentenced to 1 year, 2 months with a probation of 2 years. This means he wasn't actually going to jail. In Korea, probation basically means a suspended sentence. So as long as he doesn't commit the same crime for the probation period, his sentence would be gone, like magic. But he was caught again, actually twice. Once for bringing in marijuana and once for using it again. So 3 arrests for basically the same crime. He was eventually sentenced to 1 year and 6 months of actual prison time. See? Within the 5-year period, even though it's his 3rd arrest. And usually first-time crimes on minor crimes like using recreational marijuana are sentenced to probation because, once again, the focus is on rehabilitation and not on causing harms to the people. Another thing is that in the US, and specifically in the US because I used to live there and I am familiar with some of the sentences they give out, there's no limit on the number of years of punishments a person can get. So basically, US judges can give out like 400-year sentences and whatnot. But if you have been following K-pop and you have seen some of the results of some of the trials that we have in Korea, you probably have noticed that this never happens in Korea. That's because we have a limit on the number of years a person can get. 50 years. Of course, that's unless you're sentenced to life or execution because you have committed a horrific crime. So a huge sentence like the 400-year sentence that I've showed you is completely impossible under the Korean justice system. What also makes the Korean law seem very weak is that in the US, or many of your countries, criminals who commit multiple crimes are punished separately for each crime they commit. Let's say you commit crimes A, B, and C. If you're in America, you could be sentenced up to 10 plus 6 plus 2, so 18 years of prison time, and probably more if you talk shit to the judge. But in Korea, the focus is always on the heaviest crime. Then if you commit multiple crimes, the judge will multiply 1.5 to get the maximum sentence. So in this case, 10 multiplied by 1.5 equals 15 years of maximum sentence. So then, why does the Korean government enforce such a weak justice system? Well, aside from the fact that it is extremely difficult and time-consuming to change a justice system that has already been in place for decades, because that would mean that we would have to rewrite everything from the constitution and down, there's a theory behind why the Koreans, specifically the older generation of Koreans, don't like a powerful government in general. And obviously this isn't like the official reason for why the Korean government is enforcing a weak justice system, but more so we're looking into the Korean history and trying to figure out why Koreans might be afraid of the government gaining too much power. For example, when we talk about weak government powers, we always start with talking about the Korean police. A lot of people who have visited the US or have lived in the US like myself will sometimes say, if we mix the American police with the Korean police, we'll have the perfect police force. What this essentially means is that the Korean police is viewed as the exact opposite of the American police. And if you have been to America, you'll know that the American police is definitely not on the weak side. So what this means is that people want a stronger police force in Korea. They want a police that has more authority and more power than it has already. And obviously this isn't something that you hear in the US very often. And just like the police, generally speaking, anything with the Korean government isn't very iron fisty. And obviously, looking back just a few decades, this wasn't always true in South Korea. Just a couple decades ago, we had dictators. And of course, some of these people are praised as the leaders of the Korean economic boom, but this doesn't change the historical fact that they were dictators. And during their reign, they gave a lot of authority and power to the police and the prosecutors and abused government powers to shut down opposition and political protesters. But right now, South Korea is far from a dictatorship. I mean, come to Korea, grab a few people and ask them to talk about the president, and at least half of them will be more than happy to talk shit about our leader publicly than you could imagine. But what eventually changed Korea from a dictatorship to a complete democracy was surprisingly the college students who really went hard on the political protests despite the dangers they knew they could be in. And this was like 70s, 80s talk, so these people have now gotten older and abiding by the unbreakable rules of the Korean society where the elders are respected and your societal rank goes up with your age. These people hold basically all the power in Korea right now. So with a lot of people who have seen how a powerful government can turn its back on its citizens sitting in government seats, it's no wonder the Korean government continues to maintain this system with weak sentences and weak government powers. But I think it's important to note that just because one country uses a certain justice system doesn't make them any more superior than the other that uses a different justice system. You're still going to have side effects and you're still going to have criminals in your country. So now tell me about some of the legal systems in your countries. Is it strong? Is it weak? And is it contributing to the reduction of crimes in your country? Leave them in the comment section below, and if you found this interesting or I helped answer some of your questions, don't forget to press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more interesting information on Korea and K-pop news. Until then guys, see you next time.